Hey, Luke. I don't know if I'm going to be having so many Muslims in the future. Um, the most fun thing about your just chatting videos is waiting for you to respond to my live chats. Somewhat awake, kind of tired, and I have work I'm supposed to be doing. First, I have to unmute myself and then say, Adam. So we have one Muslim. That's as much as we can hope for. Um, and honestly, I'm not sure we're going to be getting so many in the future. Um, Khalil thinks that Doctor and Danny is not being honest. I think that um, it's 2 in the morning. Well, if it's 2 in the morning, maybe you should be going to sleep. Um, what was I gonna say? What was I saying? Oh, and I think Friendly Muslim is not an honest actor. He certainly was not being friendly and trying to make people be friendly and stuff yesterday. So, um, and Khalil said that he was the one who kicked me off his Discord server. And I mean, if he doesn't want me someplace, I'm not going to be there. Um, I actually think that Khalil is going to be too much to handle for anybody trying to handle him. I don't think um, you can handle Khalil, and I have to wonder if I am right, which I might not be. That Friendly Muslim is one of these agents of chaos. I suspect are deranging our conversation. I I doubt they could be. Tell me about aggregors and principalities, you kooky goof. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Um, I'm not. I mean, how many times have I gone now? I'm not a good spokesperson, and I I, I don't claim to be. When I used to write a lot, um, I had hopes of actually writing things. Um, yeah, watch John Vervaeke. He's smart and published and is published. Yeah, I mean that's what I've been telling people, but it's more. See, I don't think that's it, Adam. I really I think he's playing a character, a very particular character that has particular, uh, like if he's serious about having dialogue, uh, he's not really gonna find people better than Dr. and Danny and me easily, right? And in order to get, I guess, higher quality discussants, he's going to have to show to the lower quality people through the lower quality people that they can have these discussions. And frankly, he's, I think, and again, this is just my guess, he is turning Khalil's show into something very different than it was, which was an honest, open conversation. I didn't like all the people that he was constantly having up, but he wasn't banning serious speakers. Like, really? You're going to be butthurt over Dr. and Danny's Twitter, and then, I mean, I guess I'll watch and see what the video he promised to make with his receipts will be, but sometimes I'll make time or habit and not be borderline asleep and jump in one of these. I like that you're doing it. It's a great space. Well, I actually would like it a lot more if there were, and I have asked several people who I think would make a good chat moderators in a way that I would be happy with, to kind of start having either just chatting on my channel or on their own channels. That would be nice. I'm not on my show. I don't have a show. Do I have a show? And it just started a few minutes ago. Not when we were chatting. We were typing, not actually chatting. And I am procrastinating. I should be doing work. It's funny though, last night I actually kind of expected nobody to show up, and the fact that they did was surprising and interesting, and I was gonna try to explain what I meant and then just go and write my paper, which took me forever to write last night. In the Bible, Jesus sells his clothes for a pair of swords. When he gets two, he says it's enough. Is that a reference to something? I don't remember this at all. I didn't think Jesus ever bought swords himself, but I don't actually know the Christian Bible that well. Hell, I don't even know that the history between the EA Dawa crew and Dr. and Danny goes back quite far, and it's a series of events before the tweet that caused the upset. Look, honestly, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. If I'm going to have beef, right? So, for example, I have had beef with Zion Lex, right? And you can go back and see my stuff with Zion Lex. If he wants to come on my show, I'm still on my show. Why do I call it a show? on my stream. And I really have to start umming so much. Stop umming so much. If he wants to have a conversation, I'm not going to block him and pretend he doesn't exist. That's not a real thing you can do with real human beings. I love your show. Wait, thank you. I figured it was a reference to a prophecy that says something about the Messiah having swords, but I never looked into it. Not that I know. The show. Did you see the broadcast that I have scheduled? What did I call it? I scheduled Muslims destroy Jew with ums and logic. I thought that was pretty funny. Oh wow, why is it scheduled for 4 a.m.? That's not what I meant to schedule it for. Can I change the scheduling of that while I am streaming? I don't know. Let me see what StreamYard would do if I try to do that. Good thing I caught myself. These are all AMs and they should be PMs. That would have been awkward. Yeah, if you ever see a stream scheduled for 4 a.m., like the 1 hour in the world, uh, that would not happen is 4 a.m. Yeah, 4 a.m. is probably the time of the day that I dislike the most. There's a bunch of people watching and nobody's coming on. Well, a bunch. It is nice and quiet, but usually at 4 a.m., either I want to be asleep and I'm not, or I am asleep. Exercise. Yeah, that's something I never do. I hear that once you exercise enough, you actually start liking it enough that it's not the most difficult and horrible chore in the world. But I'm definitely not there. I'm reading comments on my videos. I am guessing you guys noticed I got on the Big Man's show. Man, my cousin is addicted to the gym. It's so weird how something that's so hard with little results can be. You have to turn off the YouTube page.
I did.
Okay. How you doing?
Tired. I'm about to. This is what you're talking about being awake at 4 a.m. I'm about to go to bed at 8:30.
PM?
Yeah.
You have kids. That's an excuse.
Yeah, I got lots going on. However, I'm serious. I would like to be involved in one of these one time. So I have delved very little into the um, Muslim world in general, and like your last live stream was, I mean, all the precision and technical lingo and stuff is like way over my head. I mean, really, it gave me. I sent a message to. I was talking to Sam and Sarah and Trip. Do you know Sarah? You know Sarah. Sarah Hardy.
I don't think I know Sarah. Is she? She's not one of the Hutterites, is she?
No, she's not. She'll probably think that's funny though. But
We have two Hutterites. One of them is female. I don't know her name though.
I don't. Oh well, I know Julian has a friend that I've interacted with a little bit, but I don't know her name either. Anyhow, but I was telling them just how I mean, these are the aspects actually of critical theory and privilege that I acknowledge. Like, I mean, in America, you grow up in a predominantly Christian white culture, and so I don't have to know things about Islam, or I don't have to know things about Judaism necessarily. Whereas like someone like yourself, like you know way more about my faith than I know about your faith. And so it's convicting and it's challenging to me. I would actually love to meet some really legit Islamic guys, and I mean I've met you and Yosef that I interact with about Judaism, which is really sweet. Um, I mean there's some like do you see the Jordan Peterson interaction with Mohammed Hajib or whatever?
Hijab, yeah.
Job, yeah. I just I can't tolerate that guy for very long. He's like in like in the Christian world, he'd be like James White or something of apologetics or something. I just like you're not my vibe.
Oh,
I
he's a
struggle.
lot worse. I would compare him more. I don't want to say Joel Olstein, but
But Joel Osteen's likable.
well, so hijab in is that type of populist, likable Muslim.
I mean, he's populist for sure. That's clear.
Yeah, he's the type. I mean, would would I compare him to Doug Wilson?
Well,
No, Doug Wilson is
he's not
honest.
popular.
Well, I like Doug Wilson despite how much I disagree with much of what he says.
Really?
Um,
Interesting.
he's honest, and he seems to be
He's
like I
straightforward.
like the honesty. Yeah, that's honestly that's what I like about EA Dawa. And frankly, if you wanted to go on his channel, they would be glad to have you. They have streams like this on a regular basis, and I guess I'm kind of happy in it ish because like I I actually support his project, and to some extent I felt like okay, he's doing whatever he's doing, and if for example, he's live streaming now, right?
Oh, okay.
And so if I was gonna do a just chatting stream while he's doing his live stream, I would I would do what I have been doing recently, which is just go on his stream and just hang out.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, last night destroyed that.
I don't. I mean, all of the like technical infighting and stuff is just surprising to me. What is interesting to me about it though is that I feel like on the very lowest resolution, highest level, the kind of stuff they're fighting about. If I had to guess, I would I would say that it's very similar to stuff that annoys me within any sort of tribalistic infighting, like within Christianity too. It's at the propositional level. It has
It's
mostly rooted in abstractions.
yeah. That's the it's the abstractions. I mean, I don't want to say that being Ismaili is as fringe as being a Unitarian. It's not that fringe. But to some extent I mean, for a lot of people it's like being a Mormon. You
Mm,
know, there's a lot of Mormons,
yeah,
but like no, but like see this is part of the fight that Dr. Andani is having. Um Look, the Sunnis way outnumber the Shia, and the Twelvers way outnumber the Ismailis. And yeah, in Muslim history, they've been very influential, and to some extent, they still are. Uh, they're actually far more influential than I knew about. And Dr. Andani is like a very knowledgeable historian of Islam, and so he's taught me a lot about how how Ismailis have been way more influential than I realized.
yeah,
But at the same time, and I think this goes back to the fact that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is spending huge amounts of money trying to influence what is the popular perception of Islam in the West. And so what we do see, and especially new Muslim converts, which I mean, we're talking about people who are converts here. They're not people who have lived in Muslim countries many years, and if they have, what I've noticed is they tend to have been somewhat sheltered in
mhm,
in you know religious communities and stuff, and so they seem to have this conception of Islam, which I don't think is actually congruent with real world. So
yeah,
surprise, internet Islam is very different from offline Islam in a very similar way that internet US politics is very different from offline US politics.
yeah,
And so when people come online, and I think this is part of Dr. Andani's um, both frustration and the problem he has getting proper engagement from online Muslim YouTubers is that there's this perception, and honestly it's the same thing that goes on with politics in the United States, right? Dr. Andani is not some fringe neo-Nazi, and,
prove
and
it.
exactly prove it, it's like and he's being written off as, oh, you're not a Muslim at all, right? It's like
What it really kind of reminds me of, and I don't participate in this very much because basically all I do online is small little corner stuff, and really of that, it's basically only with people that I know. So it's like you or other people that I know, like I'll pop on or talk to them or whatever on Discord. But what it reminds me of is it's probably a lot like the online community of orthodoxy, of Orthodox Christianity, which is very similar because there's like a boom in that out of Protestantism, and I think there's a lot of there's kind of like an online Orthodox world that I think is very different than a boots on the ground Orthodox world. And I don't know. I mean, I think I've told you this, but like, one way that I often think about is like the Jonathan Haidt Rider and the Elephant. And Sam and I have had a lot of conversations about this. Is if you're American, you're Protestant. I don't care if you're Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, Muslim. Like you're a Protestant. And
I hear you.
To a large degree, and I think that my conversion to Orthodoxy is largely rooted in self-identity and ego and abstraction to some degree. It's not that I don't think there's a lot of substance to it, but like where I think that I'll actually become Orthodox to any significant degree is after I've been practicing it for about 40 years, you know?
Not just that. I mean, look, Orthodoxy in the United States is so different from a country where when you walk into the church, it's just the normal church of everybody who lives in that area.
Yep.
And they might not believe anything that has anything to do with that, with that particular strain of Orthodoxy, certainly, or any religion whatsoever. But it's like it's the church they grew up in, and they just go to it.
And yeah, I mean that kind of stuff is hard because I mean what you're talking about is like you're almost talking about this shift in consciousness. So like a community. I'm gonna be taking a pilgrimage to Georgia, for example, like next year, which is an Orthodox country that's always been Orthodox. It's been Orthodox forever. It's a super old country, and so like there's a degree that you can go to an Orthodox country, or I would say any country that has a long-standing religion. Like you could go to India, and like you could say, do these people believe those things? Well, yes, they do, but not in the way that like a modernist American, like Cartesian post-Enlightenment person is saying believe. It's just like it's a different way of being in the world. And like and I think those countries have a different
well, I think any American would be quite shocked to find out how racial the identifications in the Eastern Orthodox Church are.
For sure. Yeah.
And I mean, Adam, yeah, I don't want to get into the particulars of Ismaili and Salafi and stuff, but let me just tell you, it is very, very clear for somebody like me who was born in Iran that the Shia-Sunni divide is much less about what somebody believes and much more about which tribe they belong to. It's really, really like the Sunni Shia divide in the Middle East is far more of a racial divide than it is any sort of actual philosophical divide. And people in the West just have no frame of reference for the tribalism and racism. Yeah, it is political. It is political. And that politics is fueling money coming into trying to influence the discussion online in the United States. And
But
that's what I was
I
talking about, that people don't really that the people are like, you're a conspiracy theorist, and it's like, I'm not actually a conspiracy theorist. This is documented by people.
yeah.
Yes, Dr. and Danny, I have heard that you are my handler recently.
So Jacob, I'm gonna bust out a little bit because I'm gonna go to bed. But don't you think? I mean, I agree with you about like the simplistic tribal racial divides, but I think that's part of what's happened in this evolution of consciousness. Is in an identitarian abstracted landscape, the new racism is over ideas. Like to quote
That's in the United States. People in Saudi Arabia are not living in a postmodern
no,
world.
no, I
They're
agree.
not even living in a modern world, unfortunately.
I mean, largely, I mean, I understand that that's probably true. I mean, that's kind of like the depending how much the colonialist kind of unipolar liberal culture has
It hasn't.
colonized
See,
your world.
this is part of the problem. The people in the United States who want to be pre-modern, who even understand the word pre-modern, right? If they were to actually visit any of these countries that are actually pre-modern, and Michel Foucault was actually involved in the Islamic Revolution in Iran, and I think I think he would be the precise type of idiot to go and visit Iran in a post-revolutionary world and not expect to be beheaded, which he would be immediately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I mean, there's where I will agree with you is there's not a simplistic return. Like, I'm not the kind of like traditionalist romantic back to some kind of pre-modern utopian thing is silly. Like, I don't think we can do that. But
Post-Platonism is the way of the future, Luke. Just embrace it.
sweet. Well, on that note, I'm out. I gotta go to bed. It's good to see you, Jacob. I love that you're doing this. It's fun to pop in sometimes. I think it's a good. I so this is where I'll encourage you, and I mean I've always been on this tip. I don't. I have very little like in a text-based interaction. I have very little tolerance for it. Like I'm not gonna spend my time on that. Um, audio, I'll spend more time face to face, like what you're saying. Like you're gonna show your face and put your name out there. I'll talk to you. That's cool. We're gonna develop a relationship. I'll talk to you. I'm cool with that.
That's the only way I've found to actually make this a real conversation.
Well, of course.
You have to push away the people who are not actually having a conversation, and that's what I was doing
Behaving like people.
with Friendly Muslim. You
Yeah.
know, he's playing a persona, and I mean that's how I see it. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the problem. You can't tell.
Yeah.
Look, if you want to come and have a beer with me, you can.
I've done it.
Again,
I've done it. He's not bluffing.
yeah, I am not bluffing. Hold before you go.
Yeah.
Did you talk to Byrne about your visits to Georgia?
No, I haven't. I haven't talked to Byrne at all. The only times I've ever really interacted with him are in text. I've never interacted with him outside of that. And I don't know. It's a like where what I'm doing and going is a fairly tight schedule, but I wouldn't mind meeting up with him if it's possible.
Well, he's actually trying to arrange some sort of estuarial, Bridges of Meaning festival type thing in Georgia. So, yeah. The best way to contact him, if you want to contact him, is through his Facebook.
Well, I'm not on the Facebooks.
Well, I kind of am not either. I have to decide if I'm going to delete my tweet announcing that women are women and go back to Twitter or not.
Oh wow, you gotta delete something?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Go to bed. Give your best to your wife and stuff. My best to your wife and stuff.
Bye, Jacob. God bless.
God bless. First of all, Bazani, I'm not sure. I mean, have you tried it and your network hasn't worked? Adam, I have to say, I wasn't expecting Khalil to be involved. I I let him know about it. By Roman. I let him know about it because I wanted him to know about it, but I was not intending on bringing him into it as much as I could avoid it. Um, Again, I have to say my suspicion, and it's only a suspicion, and this is the problem. People want proof, right? And it's like, I don't have proof. My suspicion is that friendly Muslim, um, had plans. I mean, when he invited me on his channel, I expected that I was helping him build a community, and he would leave the interview with him on his channel. Nope. He was supposed to also come on my channel, didn't. Um, Haroon, who is a very nice guy, but very busy, and to some extent, I have to say, I think he well, this isn't fully as much as video as things. And I have to say, I think Haroon in some ways is a bit naive, and I wanted to talk to him and ask him questions about stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, the best I can figure is friendly Muslim is actually one of these indirect handlers. Um, and that sounds really conspiratorial, and people are like, what is your proof? And I don't have proof. I have suspicions. the thing is, like, that standard of proof is well beyond anything that you can really expect to ever get for something like this, because he would have to be really stupid to leave evidence around like that. And he's not stupid. The people who are spending all the money that they are on influencing our conversation, and there are, see, this is the thing, people are like, nobody cares enough to, hey Mark, nobody cares enough to try to affect these small conversations, and I think it's absolutely the opposite. I think it's precisely the small conversations that they can, the big personalities are not susceptible to the influence that they have. Do you have any idea what we're talking about, Mark?
No, no, I just stop and say hi because I never get to your streams. They're always a mismatch. So
Okay, so actually, you being new here will help me try to explain this in a way that's explicable.
good.
So yesterday there was a stream that I had, which was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was a, okay, so there is a somewhat prominent YouTube Dawa. Do you know, have you ever heard of Dawa? It is basically Muslim evangelism, kind of. Okay? So there's Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, and he is a YouTuber. He's been on Sam's channel. He's on a bunch of channels. He's somewhat known. He's really smart, really, really smart. And there's a smaller channel called EA Dawa with this guy Khalil, who's also very smart. And there is a an academic. I forget where Dr. Andani teaches, but he may be watching right now. He was in the stream. So Dr. Andani, I believe his PhD is from Harvard in Islamic studies, and he is an academic, and he is an Ismaili Shia Muslim, which is a minority of a minority within the larger Islamic thing, although it's a very influential, historically it's been very, very influential, and it still is, it punches above its weight, let's put it that way. And so what has happened is that Dr. Andani, when he engages in not necessarily this corner, but you know, the debate, atheist debate corner, religion debate corner, like Muslim, you know. So when he gets involved, there is a school of Sunni thought called Salafi, which is officially supported by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with a lot of money. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the school that tends to be very prominent on the internet, and members of that school generally dismiss Dr. Andani the same way as a lot of Christians would, especially hardcore Christians, would dismiss Sam as like, he's a Unitarian, he's not even Christian, you know?
Right.
And so what happened was Dr. Andani came on one of my Just Chatting streams, and he was talking about how just how it seems that he has so Dr. Andani and I were both on EA Dawa's channel, who he has a lot of streams like this where people talk, but he's a much, much larger channel. Like he's streaming right now and he has 100 people watching or more, right? And so Dr. Andani and I were both on there and we were having a conversation, and Khalil and the other people there who are who are somewhat new to Islam. Khalil himself is a new convert. He's only been a Muslim for about a year now. And being extremely intelligent, and I mean extremely intelligent, he obviously knows a lot, and for 10 years he was actually an atheist YouTuber, and that's part of why his channel's so big. And Jake convinced him of Islam and he converted, and now he has his channel. Dr. Andani and I were on his channel and we were talking to Khalil, and of course Dr. Andani brings a lot of very good arguments against what is considered standard Salafi thought. And Khalil was like, yeah, you know, that stuff does, you know, he was kind of he was saying, yeah, I hear what you're saying in terms of your disagreements with Salafi, or what's called the Athari Creed, right? It's a particular creed, right, that the Salafis have. Well, Dr. Andani, and this is, I would say, emblematic of lots of interactions he's had with larger Muslim groups. He, on his Twitter, says, hey, you know, here's a link. And I don't have the exact tweet because I'm not on Twitter. I was talking to new Muslims, and they expressed doubts about the Athari Creed. And so, you know, which it's fair. Like, I think it's fair, right? Not probably not how I would have worded whatever, but it's Twitter, right? Anyway. Well, Khalil gets really angry about this and starts calling Dr. Andani all kinds of names, and like, without even talking to him, like, goes off. And this is something that's been repeated. Jake has kind of like, after a debate with Dr. Andani, suddenly become really hostile. And so Dr. Andani came on my channel, and we're talking about this. And the way he expressed it, and I think it's the way a lot of people who come up against a spirit see the agentic aspects of a spirit working on people, right? He's like, and I brought up the fact that Saudi Arabia is spending money generating this spirit, this egregore within Islam, and it really is. This has been documented by the Carnegie Endowment and lots of academics, right? I believe the British Parliament and the United States Congress, and you know, it's been discussed to death among people who actually study this stuff. And I am bringing this up, and Dr. Andani expresses it in very crude terms, as there are, you know, these Saudi handlers telling them what to say. It's like, well, and I was trying to explain, as we do in our little corner of the internet, that it's not that somebody, well, and I didn't say it as clearly as I would have liked to, but it was just a chatting stream, right? It's not somebody writing an actual check, you know? It's somebody there is an influence there from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the money that they are spending, which is creating an environment which is very hostile to an Ismaili Muslim. And what happens is, after Dr. Andani talks to some Salafi, afterwards, what happens is people talk in their community, and their sense-making mechanism, like, they're like, oh, he's just a heretic, and they completely dismiss him, right? He's dishonest, and he sees this blowback, and it seems like it seems more agentic than I think. In this corner of the internet, we realize that there's a spirit acting here that's not exactly agentic, right?
Mhm.
So what happened is, Jake, who has a much bigger channel than I do, tweets out a small clip of my discussion with him and makes it sound like I was saying that he's getting paid by the Muslims, by the Saudis, right?
Mhm.
Without putting a link to my channel.
Mm.
And me, being the lobster guy with my shoulders back, I had a stream last night, and this was the graphic for it. I'm quite proud of it.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And that was my clickbait response to the tweet. And I honestly, I felt like, you know what, if you're going to tweet my channel like that, I am going to have a response, and this, I thought, was the best response I could have. Now, so many people may disagree. Dr. Andani is actually here. Welcome, Dr. Andani.
Hello, how are you?
Good. So Mark is a member of this corner of the internet that we talk about. He has his channel. What's the name of your channel?
Navigating patterns.
Navigating Patterns. And he is very prominent in the John Vervaeke discussion group, which is slightly different from the more religious Paul Vervaeke discussion group that I am involved in. And we're both correct. What?
Vanderklay. You said Paul Vervaeke. It's Paul Vanderklay.
Oh, Paul Vanderklay. Duh. Sorry, Paul Vanderklay. And we're both quite, how do we put it, disagreeable people. So we don't actually talk very much. But
Well, nice to meet you, my friend.
Nice to meet you, sir.
And so I'm just trying to catch him up on what was happening. So yesterday,
Just regarding the whole handlers thing, right?
Yeah.
Look, I know that new converts to Islam, they do get handled. Like, there was a guy on Clubhouse all last year. I'll just give his first name. His name was Ibrahim. And he told us firsthand how he was being handled by Salafis. Like, as soon as they found out he was a new convert on Clubhouse, the Salafis would basically, like, recruit the guy, right? They would say, oh, you know, welcome, blah, blah, blah. They'd add him to WhatsApp. They eventually got his address. And then when he wanted out of the thing, they blackmailed the guy. He told me this himself. There might even be a recording of that room where he said all this. So it's not some far-fetched conspiracy type talk. And it's not just some insidious process. It's also an explicit process. So, you know, I've seen this happen in action. So if I say that, yeah, I think, you know, it looks to me that somebody was told by their Salafi handlers, quote unquote, I'm I'm saying that with like some, you know, pattern evidence of this pattern going on. It's not just some shot in the dark. Because again, I've spoken to people who've told me themselves this is how they operate.
Right. And I have to say, I am actually very strongly, and Mark knows this, in our community, I am actually one of the people who believes that this is a much more explicit process than most people in our community believe it is. And I have my reasons for believing it's far more explicit than the minimalist position that the people who talk about egregores in our community mean by it. But at the very least, there is there is definitely a spirit at functioning here that lots and lots of money being injected from places like Saudi Arabia, not just Saudi Arabia. I have to say, like, there are many countries
Yeah,
who
to be fair, this is not a Saudi Arabian project, although they certainly started this whole like the Saudis did start the global proliferation of Salafism. I mean, just look at how many mosques they build in Indonesia. You know, Indonesia is slowly shifting from this cosmopolitan Islam to this much more myopic, closed-minded version of Islam. I mean, people have commented and documented this. So the Saudis started it, but generally speaking, it's basically donors in the Gulf. And now there is a reason for this, okay? So there's one species of Salafism which is politically quietist and offers unconditional support to the rulers in the Arab countries, no matter how despotic and autocratic they are. Okay, um, so there is a national sort of interest for some Gulf nations to promote a type of Salafism that gives the rulers free reign. Right? It's a type of Salafism that says you can't criticize the ruler if he's Muslim. You know, you can't criticize them, you can't overthrow them. So this sort of thing is there. Is that the type of Salafism that's influencing people on YouTube? I don't know. I don't think so. But in either case, as you said, Jacob, the global proliferation of Salafism and its various types being funded, this is a well-known fact.
And I would say, I mean, again, I keep on talking about Baptists and bootleggers. There are so many different people pushing so many different forces. It's fluid mechanics. We're not talking about solid mechanics, right? And there are so many people pushing and trying to affect the currents of things, and lubricating the system with lots and lots of money, that it's deranging the conversation completely, which is my whole thing. I mean, that's what, you know, our distributed cognition, especially in the United States, because it is such a high stakes game for people outside the United States, is being is being attacked by all of these psychotechnologies. And so yeah. What do you have to say for yourself, Mark?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's worth thinking about to the sort of point of egregore, right? You can look at the word egregore and say, well, where does it, why are people using the word egregore? What's going on with that, right? And I think it really is when you're a materialist and you see things in the world and you go, well, according to materialism, it should work this way. This should be the direct relationship, right? And then that's not what's happening. And then you go, our materialism is failing us. What do we do, right? And then it's like, oh, well, we need a new word. Let's grab the occult word for spirit, or negative spirit, technically, demon.
Oh, really? Is egregore negative? I didn't realize it.
It's an occult word for demon. That's all it is.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So they just grab a word. I think it's out of the 1500s too. Like, they like the 1500s. They redefine religion in 1530, right? Egregore. There's a bunch of stuff they grab from the 1500s. But I think the worst problem is sort of not the undercurrent of we'll say a spirit, driven by money or driven by ideology or driven by culture or any of those things. I think it's the fact that when you don't recognize that there are these spirits running underneath this stuff, the conversation degrades to chaos automatically, because you have no way of relating to, like, I could say, oh, well, look at Saudi and Saudi money, and I'm sure that's some part of that spirit. But I'm sure there's other parts of that spirit that aren't Saudi and Saudi money, such that even if you get rid of the Saudi and Saudi money, you're still going to have a problem. And it may dampen it a little bit for a while, but the spirit doesn't care about the money. The spirit's going to come out, right? And if it's not Saudi money, it'll be, progressive ideology that's driving the same thing, like literally the same thing.
And we have to say, it's not like Salafism is completely theologically bankrupt and could not sustain itself merely as a theology.
Right. Sure. Right? Exactly. But I and look, I mean, I think you see this all the time, right? You can look at the nice thread we had on John Vanderklay's channel around that nice little talk that Nathan and Vervaeke did, right? And
I didn't actually watch it. I can't stand Nathan.
Well, it was interesting, but a lot of the undercurrent of what was going on there, Paul doesn't know and John doesn't know. They don't know, no idea, right? And so to your point, they're having a conversation with Nathan in good faith, and Nathan, I know, is not a good faith actor. He's not a good faith actor.
He's definitely not a good faith actor, and engaging him in good faith. I mean, did you see Vanderklay's discussion with Vaush?
No, I don't think I ever did.
So Vaush actually named it one of the best discussions he's ever had. Like, he had a top 10 show. It might have been for the year. It might have been even more for a year. And it was like number 4 in his top 10 discussions ever on his channel.
Wow.
And Paul was, I hate to put it this way, but a doormat the way only a Calvinist Christian could possibly be. And it was, when dealing with someone like Vaush, it may have been, in fact, the best way to deal with him.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., like just sitting there and letting themselves be mauled. Right. And Paul was just he wasn't reacting. Right. He was just taking punch after punch after punch and trying to still have a nice, affable, and even Paul, I don't think usually is able to maintain that level of composure under constant assault the way Vaush was going at him. And I just couldn't stand it. And I have to say, I don't know if that is the best way to deal with Vaush.
Sure.
I suspect that it's possible Paul, in fact, did advance his cause. At the same time, I think it's possible that it advanced it with some people and didn't with far more people. Right. I don't know. And that's part of what's hard here. And I don't know if I honestly I don't know what is the best way to go about dealing with things here.
But it's because it's a spirit, to your point, right? So you've got Vaush's spirit, right, that's running along one line, right? And then you've got this spirit of, these, the Muslim factions, right? The various spirits there, because there are spirits there, to your point. And then you've got these, these all kinds of people, just, they have this spirit of destruction, right? They don't want to build things up. They want to tear things down. They want to come into communities and say, here's why you're wrong. And what? That's great. And you know what? Maybe those communities are wrong for that reason, but they're building something. And maybe in the building, they'll correct the thing. I don't know. Like, I'm not claiming that that's going to happen. I have no idea. But all you're doing is tearing things down, which is very easy to do, right? It's very easy. I have a video on postmodernism where I basically say postmodernism is a bunch of 4-year-olds, right? Because any 3 or 4-year-old can say why 100 times until you run out of answers. And that's all postmodernism does, right? It just, it allows you to sound smart when all you're doing is tearing stuff down, and you're not building anything. You're not adding anything. You're not being productive, right? You're just pointing out flaws without solutions, or solutions that are ridiculous and idealistic, or solutions that are all about power, right? And that's not helpful. And you see, the thing that I liked about Van der Klay's commentary on Nathan and John's discussion was, to me, he seemed flaming mad and going full bore. And I was like, you go, Paul, you go. And I liked the way he tore apart Nathan. But again, I mean, I think they're both missing, because they don't have the full story. It's one thing if, Nathan.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think Paul went as much on the offensive as Paul is ever going to go.
Yes, I agree. Well, but I thought it was good.
He basically did signal this man is a fascist. He pretty much said that. He's like, yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised ultimately. And I have to, well, okay, so Grim wants you to give us the full story. What is the full story?
All right, so the full story is easy, right? If you go look at Nathan's channel and you watch what he posts on his channel and what streams he does anger and resentment porn. That's what he does. And the only reason why I actually know this is because aside from Nathan getting kicked off of BOM, Nathan got kicked off of the Vervaeke server. I don't think 5 people have ever been kicked off that server ever. And, there are people who have been on that server for 2 years trying to get kicked off, and they can't do anything to get kicked off. Nathan comes and gets kicked off immediately because he comes in the middle of a chat, and not even a chat. We were doing our meditation. It says meditation hall, right? And he starts typing in the text thing, and he won't come on camera with us, right? Whatever, which is fine. Whatever, no one's mad about that. And he says, "What do you guys all believe?" And the Buddhist says, "Well, I don't know about these other guys, but I believe in Buddhism," right? And one of the Christians says, "Well, I'm a new Christian," right? And then the 2 atheists pipe up, "Well, yeah, we're atheists." And there was an agnostic. There was somebody else. Like I don't know. I don't remember. There were at least 6 people in the room though. And Nathan goes, "No, that's not what I mean." We're like, "Wait, we answered your freaking question, dude. Like, what is wrong with you?" And he said, no, what do you all believe? Like, what parts of Vervaeke's work do you believe in? And, one guy goes, "Well, I like this part of Vervaeke's work, and I like this part." Everybody, because we're not there for that. First of all, it's the meditation hall. We're there to do a meditation together. And some of us aren't meditating. Some of us are praying. Some of us aren't using John's meditation method. Some of us are Buddhists and using, some different Buddhist style we're just there to gather together, right? And he comes in and gets into this, text flame war for no reason. And people are like, "Why don't you come into Voice and talk to us? We'd love to hear your voice," right? You don't have to put it in your camera, but we'd love to talk to you because it's quicker, right? And we don't want to have, 6 people responding to everything that you put in. And he basically said, "You guys are a cult, and I need to show you that you're a cult so that you can get out of the cult." And we were like, "Dude, we're not a cult." And I finally got tired of it. And I said, if he's a troll, which I was certain that he was, if he's trolling us, I will say something that any troll who is a narcissistic piece of garbage, or maybe schizophrenic, and paranoid, will hear as directed at them, even though I'm not directing it at anybody at all. So I made a comment on voice that was not directed at anybody at all, or anybody in particular. It wasn't even directed at humans, honestly. Like the comment was just, we all need to calm down. We need to remember to breathe and be quiet and be kind to lesser creatures, right? And he he interpreted that as being directed only at him and entirely at him. And he
yes,
got
lesser creature must mean him. Yes, yes.
he got flaming mad. And I said, troll confirmed. And basically he went off the rails to the point where he got kicked off the server right then and there. Boom, done. See ya.
I had similar interactions with him on BOM. Jeremiah would accuse me of getting people kicked off BOM, which to some extent is true.
Mhm.
I certainly
A shocked
made
face.
people who were making small anti-Semitic like jabs, like I would make them actually say full out what they were saying and show their cards. And sometimes one of them flew into an anti-Semitic rage and started posting all, full,
Mhm.
4chan anti-Semitic stuff. And it was like, yeah. But okay. So Grizz says, Digital Notice is a sweet channel name, but I wish he'd show us on the doll where this corner of the internet touched him. I think that's kind of true, but I
Well,
actually think Bazzani
that's fair.
understands what's going on a little bit better. I think a large part of it, I mean, no human being does anything for only one reason.
Right.
I think he just wants to be a prominent YouTuber and he sees a channel for growth.
Yeah. Well, but also, Jacob. I mean, that's not the end of the story. It went on with Nathan. So I had literally zero interaction with him. I never talked to him directly, to the best of my knowledge. Like he might have come on in another name, whatever. Doesn't matter, right? So he went and did a 3-hour stream breaking down my conversation with Vanderclay. A 3-hour anger and resentment. Right. Now it's like, oh, wait a minute. Why would you do that? This is a guy you've never talked to. I've never spoken with him. I've never spoken with him once. Right. So it's like, why are you butthurt, guy? Like, what's wrong with you? So he does this 3-hour stream. And honestly, like, I didn't listen to it. But the first 10 minutes is classic because I make my Descartes joke, right? About, oh, you don't want to get too Cartesian about this, and he didn't understand any of it, like at all, like right in the moment. And like, it just made me laugh. It makes me laugh every time I think about it. Cause and then he's talking to John. He's like, well, I took philosophy. I'm like, dude, if you took philosophy and you know less Descartes than me, get your money back, like get your time back, like sue for damages, right? Like I've never read any Descartes. Come on.
Okay. So the thing is, Nathan, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to deal with people who it's obvious they don't have a lot of self-awareness.
Right. Well, but also, this is even better. So Cassidy goes on one of his streams, right? Because he's got live streams like you do.
Are you coming to the wedding? You're not coming to the wedding, are you?
No, I'm not traveling. So she comes into BOM and says, "Hey, I was just on this stream, and it was interesting. And Nathan mentioned you, and I'm like, Nathan who? Like I don't know this guy. I never thought about him again after he got thrown off the Vervaeke server, really. So then I go and engage with this stream, and this is a year after he got thrown off the Vervaeke server, if I remember correctly. It was several months, if not a year. And he's like, yeah, that Mark Lefevre guy. Cassidy didn't bring me up. Nobody brought me up. So I've been on his mind for a year. I've never spoken with him about anything. And part of the reason why I know that this is part of what's going on is because he slipped up and mentioned parabolic to John. Now, John is not a fan of the parabolic knowledge theory, right?
I know.
Mary Cohen came up with it.
I am not either. I have to say.
Yeah, well, we've renamed it the poetic. So had Nathan been paying attention, which of course he is not. He's lazy, right? That's one of my assertions. He's lazy because, and here's the tragedy of that conversation. I did mention this in the comment. The tragedy is that there is some merit to Nathan's points, but he picked the strongest side of Vervaeke's argument to criticize. When there are plenty of weaker arguments that Vervaeke has that that would have been good for John to hear, right? But Nathan's not the right guy because he just doesn't know the work, and he doesn't know the work because he's not able to engage. And he sits there in that stream and he says like, well, I wanted to, these guys are in this closed community. It's like BOM was not a closed community. The Vervaeke server was not a closed, maybe closed to you after you shut the door because you wouldn't engage. And he's talking to John and he says,
the only thing I really remember is the supposed problem he had with the term combinatorial explosive.
Right.
Combinatorial explosive. And it was like the most idiotic possible criticism you could possibly have. Let me catch up on the comments. The bullfrog accused you of a thing you were doing. Check. I have to say, I often found Jeremiah would be mad at me for things I did not really know about, B did not really think were bad things, and sometimes like I just remember I apologized to him for a mistake that I made, which was an honest mistake, but it was my mistake and I apologized. A year later, like he's like, yeah, you accuse, and I was like, I apologized to you. And he's like, no, you didn't. So I went and found the apology and I'm like, I apologize to you and I will apologize to you again. I was in the wrong. And I am sure to this day, he's still butthurt over the thing I apologized to him. Because I am something in his mind, and this happens particularly when you're a Jew with certain Christians. I am something in his mind that is beyond who I as a physical person am. Sure. Does Nathan have autism? I doubt it very much. I think he has a spirit of postmodernism to him.
And anger and resentment.
Oh my God, it's Mark. You have a fangirl.
I know.
When I debunked the navigating patterns conspiracy advice, I don't know what that is. Mark totally ignored it, so I know I was right. Okay. The IDW fell apart because they couldn't keep up that steelman the opponent nonsense. I don't think that's why they fell apart, but steelmanning the opponent is nonsense if your opponent actually cannot be steelman. And I say this to people who bring up the Trinity all the time. It's like, I can give you a steelman position for why the Trinity exists, right? I can give you several reasons why the Trinity exists. People need mystery. People, cones and contradictions are important to some people's sense of self. It acts as a very good shibboleth in order to get people to signal that they are willing to subjugate their reason to tradition, right? But when it comes down to it, you cannot say, yeah, that is funny. I need exactly 3 reasons the Trinity exists. But when it comes down to it, I am not going to pretend that it's some sensible, reasonable thing. In fact, what makes it so important to the people who recognize it as a mystery is the fact that it is a mystery and it's incomprehensible and whatever, right? And it's like, you're never going to get me to tell you how a materialist or a rational human being should believe in the Trinity.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, you can't
Not a rant
steal man
about
everything.
Trinity. It's something that's required on my streams. So go ahead.
Yeah, you can't steel man everything. The whole steel man argument is garbage. Like some things don't make any sense, and to the extent that you can steel man, look, yeah, I can use logic, and rationality and reason to prove all kinds of things that you would not expect, right? But the problem with that is that it requires certain starting axioms, and you can get dropped into those fairly quickly, where things look perfectly okay to you with those starting axioms, and then the next thing you know, you're killing 100 million people, right? Like Karl Marx did it. Like it's not hard. Like it's been done several times. It's not
Okay,
difficult.
I'm going to do something extremely dangerous. I'm going to leave you alone on my stream. You can do whatever you like while I get a glass of water.
Excellent idea. I will ruin this stream somehow, I'm sure. But no, I mean, I think there's a spirit that runs through actions in these people, whether it's whether it's the whatever's happening with the different sects in Saudi Arabia and in the Islamic community, whether it's the problem that that we have with the splintering of sort of religious traditions in Protestantism. Like there's spirits here, right? Or it's the anger and resentment porn. It's all over the internet that like Nathan's a part of. Like I think if you look at Nathan's stream, if you look at Nathan's videos and you watch a couple of them, I don't think you're going to think he's a good actor, like because he's not a good actor. He doesn't do good things, right? And look, you can see the opposite. You can see people engaging, and like Tim Pool, right, in a very neutral way, right, in a very fair way, and you can tell, okay, that's a fair actor. But you have to do a lot of research, and this is where Vanderklay has a real leg up, right? He talks about this. He says, look, for somebody with a moderate sized YouTube channel, talk to somebody with a big YouTube channel, the big YouTube channel has to engage with the other material. And so if you have somebody with that asymmetry where they have a lot of, because Nathan has a lot of material on his channel, he just cranks out a lot of stuff. I mean, look, he's got a lot of viewers, he's very popular, whatever.
How large is his channel?
Huh?
How large is the channel?
I don't know. I think he had like thousands of views on some of those, though.
What was the name of the channel? Digital something?
Gnosis? Isn't it
Gnosis.
Digital Gnosis? Yeah, I think that's his channel name.
6,500 subscribers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, his streams are quite large. I mean, he does quite well. But like, if a Peterson or something would engage him, like Vervaeke's not gonna watch enough of his streams to see the anger and resentment porn, right? He's not gonna see. He's not gonna watch them attack Cassidy. I watched the whole thing. He's not gonna watch them attack Cassidy's position. And look, Cassidy's pretty smart. She was doing a good job defending her position, and I happen to agree with most of her positions. So,
wow, his channel actually has much more views than it has subscribers.
Yeah, right. I've seen that a few times. Yeah, I've noticed. In fact, I saw somebody with way fewer subscribers than I had, and they had views over 1,000. I was like, hey, how'd they do that? That's pretty cool. But you need other sources like Reddit or something.
The thing I see sometimes with that is, for example, there's a channel, Midnight Mormons, that a lot of people who hate watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
people who hate watch will often not subscribe. But usually, I mean, if you have this many videos with over 7,000 views, it's strange that you only have 6.57 thousand subscribers. I wonder why that is.
Yeah. Well, and look, I mean, it's hard to engage with all the material he has. But if you haven't engaged with material, you don't realize it's anger and resentment porn for people. And if you don't realize that, then you think he's a good interlocutor, because his criticisms on the surface, at least on Twitter, seem like they have some form of validity to them. But like I said, he criticized John on his strongest points and not his weakest. And had he done the weakest points, he could have made quite a bit of progress. But because he got thrown out of the community and won't read John's papers, for example, and maybe not criticize anything John's written a paper about, he failed. He failed to do it.
Look at this. The exhausting nonsense that is PVK Christian's pseudo-profound drivel.
Yep. That's what I mean. It's anger and resentment porn. It's not serious stuff. But I mean, imagine Jacob.
Aftermath.
But just imagine him attacking somebody he's never talked to and remembering them a year later out of context, because and back then especially, I wasn't a big BOM person. Like, I was on the Vervaeke server. He's talking to Cassidy. Cassidy is not even on the Vervaeke server, to the best of my knowledge. And he brings me up. It's like, dude, why are you so obsessed? How sad. Like, I feel bad for him.
I have to say, I think there are people who they cannot distinguish between an actual profound idea and a pseudo profound one, or a scientific idea and a pseudo scientific one. And they need people like Nathan to kind of name something like that. But like I said in my comments to Vervaeke, calling John Vervaeke as a pseudoscientist, really?
Yeah, published, right, all over the place.
He's a professor at University of Toronto. It's like, and what kind of pisher are you? Where'd you get your PhD?
Right. Well, and look, the thing that I put in my comment was, if Nathan's in computers and he doesn't understand combinatorial explosion or how it was used, I don't know what to say about his accreditation, but it shouldn't have been that way. I'm sorry. Like, I've got the book right here,
We get the same problem with Sam Adams, I think. I was very surprised. So when I heard him not be able to comprehend the is-ought distinction, which he seems to still not be able to comprehend, I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe he's been in hard sciences so much that he's never had to deal with this idea. So I went and looked up his education. He has a bachelor's degree with a major in philosophy.
Again, I don't know how you don't understand my Descartes joke when I'm in the middle of saying it, right? And make fun of it even right after it becomes apparent what joke I'm making and why it's, it's not entirely a joke. I always say, like, you got to be careful when you invoke Descartes. You don't want to get stuck in the, trying to map the real world to the, to the not real thing, right? Like, you got to be careful. And, it's amazing. And especially University of Toronto, right, where all this AI research came out of, when John was there for some of that, right? He must know Hinton, right? And Hinton's the big guy for deep neural nets. Like, I don't understand combinatorial explosion, but I get O log n. If you get O log n and you don't understand combinatorial explosion, then you probably understand neither concept, because
you're talking above my head. But honestly,
yeah.
I couldn't.
But that's what I mean. Like, he's claiming all this expertise, right? And not to understand something that, I'm sorry, but if he were educated in computer science, he should know all this. And John maps it that way, right? Like, the whole idea of combinatorial explosion comes out of the fact that when you take a computer AI and you try to make it understand something in the world, and Peterson talks about it differently, but he talks about the same issue, it doesn't work. Why? Because O log n. That's why. Because it's too big. The numbers are too big. You can't calculate all the moves in a chessboard for all the possible chess moves. Right. Like, it's just, and that's, everything is like that.
Ethan, I'm not sure if you're being kind of sarcastic with that point. Vervaeke may be a teaching professor more than a research professor, but he certainly does research, and as a teaching professor, he supervises a large amount of research. And so
He has a
I'm
lab.
not sure making that distinction. I mean, you're making it sarcastically, but it's
Yeah,
not a real distinction in academia.
he used to run a lab at UFT. I think they shut it down recently, if I remember correctly. But he used to run the lab. So like the
Well,
whole
no,
time
I
he was
mean,
teaching, he ran the lab.
as far as like the time, yes, there is a okay. So you weren't being sarcastic. Okay, I have to say this is the type of argument that I find critical and making a point that's not an actual good point if you are aware of the environment in which Vervaeke is teaching. Even if he's teaching undergraduates mostly, I don't know if he is. I'm guessing he has several graduate students. But let's say he was in fact teaching undergraduates mostly. As somebody who is teaching at University of Toronto, he is up on research and understands research and has a competence with research that this is a criticism made by people who have never actually attended a teaching research university. University of Toronto, I am pretty sure. I mean, I don't know Canada the way I know the United States, but I am pretty sure is a research university, a teaching research university. And a lot of people like teaching research universities. And being a teacher is not somehow completely disjoint in the way
Right.
that I would say maybe some people in a very left brain and a way might try to separate those two together. He spends most of his energy on teaching. Point being, he could be more published if he wanted to be. Oh, I understand. Okay. I thought you were making a different point.
Yeah, no, I agree. Right. The problem in academia, generally speaking, right? So if you go to MIT or something, what you'll see is the teachers that teach 2 classes and the rest of it, they're not teaching, right? They're sitting there researching all the time. And look, some of those people are very valuable and some of them are very not valuable because they don't teach. So that's usually the criticism you get against teachers.
And I have to say, when it comes to publishing, peer review is so much more corrupt than unfortunately it is. And the whole grievance study affair and so-called
More or less in different fields, though, to be fair, right?
yes, but I mean there is a replication crisis, particularly in psychology.
Yeah, almost all psychology is complete bunk. I mean, it just is. Sorry, I'm not a fan anyway, but yeah. I mean, there's some good work, but not much.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, I'm considering going back to school for an MSW to become a LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, and part of the reason I don't want to, and I'm certainly not thinking, like, I considered for all of 2 seconds going to UCLA, and it was like, do I want to go to a top tier school in social work where the wokeness will be off the charts? No, I think I will stick to, the schools where wokeness has not completely penetrated. Probably ways more potential to do good. Honestly, what he said about this being a chiral moment, and when my friend who knows much more math than I do and has a PhD explained chirality to me, I started understanding, because chiral does not mean just that it's turned in a different way. It means that it's been taken apart and put back together in a different way.
Right.
And that made me understand what Vervaeke means about this being a chiral moment we are in. And I mean, I was talking to Dr. and Danny. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. I was talking to him offline yesterday, a little bit after the thing. And I told him what I have also said to Eric Weinstein privately is I think John Vervaeke is the most important single academic in the world, as far as I can tell. And I haven't done an exhaustive study, but I think he gets it much better than most people. I don't think I mean, it's hard for me to say that I understand something better than him. My understanding is different from him in ways that I feel I could hopefully defend it, because there are other people. I think Jordan Peterson understands the culture war better. I think John Vervaeke understands where we are in terms of civilizational chiral moments better. And I mean, I'm also drawing on Ian McGilchrist to some extent, and a lot of other people. And I mean, from my vantage point, I think I think Vervaeke, and what I told Eric Weinstein when I talked to him, which is not very often, is pay attention to John Vervaeke. And I said the same thing to Dr. Andani. Pay attention to John Vervaeke. I think Vervaeke is doing important work. I also have been pushing Jonathan Haidt, and I've been pushing Jordan Peterson, and I've been pushing Ian McGilchrist, because these are actual people who are far smarter than I am, and I think understand what's going on much better than I do.
Yeah, it's certainly supporting work in that aspect.
We'll say that it was John Vervaeke, not Jordan Peterson or Pajot, that got me back inside a church. To some extent, it was Jordan Peterson which has me back inside, well, for the first time inside churches, but also back in synagogues.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that's because I really did come from it from a much more psychological point of view. And for me, I always found the Freudians to be less credible than the Jungians.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and look, I mean, I've made this argument on, to Vanderklam, my first conversation with him, well over a year ago now, right? I think that Peterson's way more of a pragmatist, despite being, much better published than almost everybody else in the field. But what Vervaeke is giving you is a science of meaning. And if you're particularly science oriented and you really want the sciencey science, Vervaeke's got a framework, and he's got, something much more complete. And some of the stuff he uses, even when I disagree with something like participatory knowledge, because I think our model is much, much better. It is so useful that I use it all the time. Like I even though it's not part of the model that we've modified from his original, I use participatory knowledge in particular because of its power. And I think it has particular powers psychologically and from a scientific perspective, and it's very, very sneaky in some ways, because it gets around the highest value being epistemology problem, right? It's because it doesn't challenge that highest value. It says, you know what, epistemology is still the highest value. It's just that there's a part of epistemology that maybe you're not paying attention to. It's like, oh, how interesting, right? So you haven't challenged my worldview at all. You've just added to it. You've cracked me open a bit, right? And that I think is very powerful.
I think the biggest problem in epistemology is scientism, and I don't know if the various ways of knowledge do address that enough head on. I want people to understand scientism doesn't work. By the way, there is a link at the top of the chat if other people want to jump on. There are a bunch of people watching, and it would be nice to have more people actually come on and discuss with us.
They're all afraid. Look, I mean, I think when John talks about the propositional tyranny, I disagree partly, but I understand what he's saying, and it's a useful frame, and that's his scientism, right? Propositional tyranny is the thing that creates the scientism because it's scientific dogma. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but I'm going to state it's scientific dogma. Scientism is there's no difference, right? It's just dogma in science instead of in the church, and then that's what causes that. So if he casts that as propositional tyranny, and people go, oh yeah, there's definitely propositional tyranny. He's definitely right. We're listening to too many experts. Absolutely. And then he goes, oh, but by the way, there's this participatory knowledge. It's like, oh, really? What's that all about? Right? Because participatory knowledge in some sense can't be dogmatic or can't be dogmatic in the same way. And so it doesn't suffer as badly, I would say, from the sway of scientism. And so I would say that's precisely one of the advantages that it gives you.
Okay, but I have to say, I think in our corner of the internet, we are too dismissive of. Can you tolerate one imbecile on the stream? I mean, I'm sorry, Mark. I have to. Oh,
I know.
you
could throw me out.
meant somebody else. Oh, sorry. Okay. I think in this corner, we have taken it too far and we are too dismissive of the propositional. I think the propositional matters. And this is one of the things that I often tell, especially Jews, that, whether or not there was an exodus from Egypt matters to me in such a way that if I were to be convinced that, yes, this never happened, it would, in fact, change my theology. Right. Now, how much would it change my theology? Would I suddenly give up everything of value in everything that's not propositional in Judaism? No, I would not. But at the same time, there is something especially important about the propositional value. Jess!
Hey, there we go. We got the big guns. Wow. Ooh, and we got
Jess
Ethan.
And Ethan. Wow.
Man, tag team.
So tell us about Job, Jess.
Well, I
Did you talk about anything else?
I
Job?
watched your videos. I feel
Not-
so bad about having
not
watched
lately. Me and Sherry have like 22 hours on Job. We made it through the whole book. So,
Wow. Congrats. Well done.
but I do, Mark and Jacob, I want to talk to you about this. Hey, Ethan, I don't know you. I'm Jess.
You don't know Ethan?
Hello.
Ethan's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't met Ethan.
Ethan is our resident Mormon. He is
Oh,
really
nice.
to the Latter-day Saints and the Book of Mormon, by which he lives his life constantly. And you can see that by the fact that he actually had to get a beard card from his elders before he grew his beard.
Oh, nice.
That was completely sarcastic. I hope that's
I thought Ethan was gonna click out. Yeah, I got to meet Ethan at the airport there, and we drove up from the airport in Minneapolis up to Thunder Bay. So that was a lovely time.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I have a question for. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say that was probably the fastest 6 hours that I've ever experienced in my life. Not joking. It was wonderful.
You
Thank
guys
you.
were both up at Thunder Bay?
Yeah.
Nice. I was going to try to go, but I couldn't make it. I was
I am
very
going to
disappointed.
make a semi-announcement. There is a possibility that there will be some sort of event either in the spring, summer, or fall in Southern California or Utah.
That's so much easier than Thunder Bay. It's like both of those are 8 hours away from me. Either one of them. They're exactly both 8 hours away from me.
Easier
Just
for you,
where are
not
you?
easier for me.
Oh, we'll fly you out here.
if we end up doing it, I mean, in Los Angeles, flights to LAX are probably the cheapest flights you're going to get anywhere.
Hmm.
Jess, where are you?
I'm in Kansas City.
Kansas City. In the
We have an
middle of-
international airport.
Aha.
Does it have any big planes, or does it just say super international jet port and have all these, 4-seater prop planes? Because I've seen those airports before.
There's like one flight to Thunder Bay. That's what makes it international.
Ethan, it's all you, LobsterCon 2023.
Oh, man, I guess I did technically host LobsterCon 2022, but
You
according to
did.
you,
Ethan was the host of LobsterCon 2020, the
Oh my
5th
god.
annual LobsterCon. LDS LobsterCon was held by Ethan at Thunder Bay. I bet you didn't know that, Mark.
I did actually hear grumbling to this, but Jess, what's this? You wanted to hone in on this convo. I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Well, you guys are chatting about Vervaeke, and I had listened through his Thunder Bay stuff and him talking to Peugeot, and so as you know, Job is on my mind too, and I had like a couple thoughts. Well, I have one of them that I remember, and the other one I'm hoping will come to me. But he talks about, the meaning crisis and how how he's trying to do his part to aid in it. And so where does like, I mean, the simplest way to get into Chad. Oh my gosh.
What?
This is becoming an epic stream.
I just got smoke. I didn't want to bother you too much. I didn't say hello.
Hey, Chad. It's good to see you.
I went to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Oh, did you like it? No.
Yes, but they weren't happy with me because I would not. They asked me, "Are you an alcoholic?" and I said no, and like half the people were like, you just think you're not an alcoholic," and the other half was like, "What are you doing here?"
A Philistine.
It was an open meeting, yeah.
What a bunch of dweebs.
Okay, so my question is basically, do you think John Vervaeke puts too much hopes into distributive cognition? Where he's using these practices, he's using these other things. He's sort of trying to tap into it. Not that it's obviously it's not the only thing he's trying to do. But so like the dialogos thing. So we want to have these conversations. Obviously, I think these are important. I know the power of these types of conversations, the transformative aspects of it, the way that you can get somewhere with someone else that you can't get by yourself. And it is tapping into this distributed cognition thing.
Right.
But there is a way in which, well, I mean, just I'm thinking about the book of Job because that's all I do. But so Job and his friends, they're not engaged in dialogos. It's some sort of hostile, like they maintain the conversation through the book. Like it's not like they just stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the continued conversation, but it's adversarial.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I have to make a distinction here.
Mhm.
Distributed cognition is the most important thing, and I think has to remain the most important thing. I have my criticisms about Vervaeke about distributed cognition. They're not what you're talking about. But I also think right now you're talking about his emphasis on philosophia as opposed to philonokia, right? Or nikia, and yes, we have a lot of people who think we are not being agreeable enough, And I think that's completely wrong, and they're misunderstanding what the problem. So this is part of where I feel Vervaeke is missing the elephant. This part of the elephant that some of us can see is he does not seem to be aware of all of the, and this is how we actually started talking, bad actors that are deliberately manipulating our distributed cognition. And
Right.
Are they posing as good actors and messing
course.
things up, or are they acting adversarial?
No, Nathan is clearly doing that. Like
Oh,
clearly,
right.
like I pointed that was part of why I got on the street to point this out. Like Nathan is clearly a bad actor. He has anger and resentment porn on his channel, right? And it's directed at some of these people, right? I mean that's happening. Like you can just go look, right? But you have to look, and it's expensive for somebody like Vervaeke to look at Nathan's channel and find out, oh, his tweets are borderline, but all the rest of his stuff is garbage. It's just
Right.
anger and resentment porn. And
Well,
I yeah, you can see it.
I mean, come on.
This is a
The exhausting nonsense that is PVK Christian's pseudo drivel.
Okay, well this gets to my point. Okay, Nathan engages in, let's say he is a bad actor. Let's say he's engaging in this adversarial type of
Yeah.
move. Okay, this is what Job's friends are doing to him. Now Job actually benefits from it because let's say he maintains his integrity and he defends himself against their lies, and he presses on. Job, in essence, I think benefits in a way that he would benefit from Dialogos, but he's in this adversarial thing. So his adversaries aren't benefiting, but he's benefiting because of something that's happened inside of him.
well, I think
Does
I
that
think
make
they're all
sense?
benefiting. They're all benefiting.
I think a lot of this has to do with, if you're going to talk about distributed cognition, it should be in the context of what do you want, or what's the hope for telos. And like Job's friends, they're not interested really in Dialogos. They're interested in what they already know, and
Well, exactly, but
they're interested in maintaining what they believe to be true. So they're not really engaged in a Dialogos or a distributed cognition. They're just kind of like, Job is the only one really interested in trying to figure out what's going on. These other guys,
right, but Job still benefits from the engagement, even though they're bad actors, they're adversarial. But because of something happening inside of Job, he benefits from the, let's say, the Philonikeia that's happening, the distributive consciousness that's happening.
Right.
But it's not in this Dialogos. This is an example of
No, but Jess, hold on.
Job benefiting despite.
Let
Go ahead.
me straighten something out, okay?
Yeah.
Any conversation of any nature is distributed cognition. Period. End of statement. This is Vervaeke's main problem with distributed cognition. He doesn't take it seriously enough. He doesn't understand the depth of what he's talking about, right? And the other problem is with his Dialogos and this fellowship and all this magic stuff that he's trying to magic it. And I'm using that deliberately, right? He's trying to magic it into existence. It doesn't work. I know it doesn't work. We do it on the Vervaeke server. It doesn't work, right? And not that to say it doesn't have any effect, but it doesn't work. Like it doesn't provide that change. And when Vervaeke talks about distributed cognition, there's no distributed cognition in his meditation. He gives lip service. He says, oh, you should meditate in a Sangha. Absolutely, you should. But you should also do the stuff that Manuel and I developed on the server, right? Which is how to be in the meditation hall after the meditation, how to talk about the after meditation, when to cut that off, right? And then move to another forum so you're not polluting the nature of that conversation, because the after meditation talk is a very mysterious talk. Like nobody that's talking there is making any sense at all. And yet everybody there understands everything that's being said. And I can't explain that. I can just tell you, you can come and witness it. It's kind of weird. and it's weird.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it.
Well,
But
I mean, I grew up in a charismatic church, so I know I'm familiar with those types of environments.
I'm sure. Well, and that's the thing though. Vervaeke doesn't stress any of this stuff. He says communitas like 9 times, but he doesn't tell us how and what that looks like and what a healthy community. He doesn't do any of the hard work. He just says it. You know, and they say he uses emanation the same way, he uses distributed cognition the same way. He says it and then moves on as though he said something very profound. And he's not wrong, but he's also not giving it enough flavor to make it useful. So, and this is what Manuel and I were on about when Vervaeke and Peterson did their first convo, and they're like, we need more Philia Sophia and less Philia Nikeia. And we're like, no, because you can't make statements without Philia Nikeia. Like that's how you make your arguments. Otherwise,
Okay,
you're
Peter wants to say something and he's too bashful to actually butt in.
Who?
You.
Oh, this is why Pageau's talk at the conference was so awesome. It was like that's the left hand of the logos. Vervaeke is completely excluding the left hand of the logos. The hand that he has the flaming sword in, like that's half of it. That's literally half of it. And when you exclude that half, you become what Jordan Peterson calls the eatable mother.
You know, it's really crazy. That's what Kanye West just said in a video today that I heard. He talked about the left foot being ideas and the right foot being fruition.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Weird. I gotta go.
Okay, bye, Chad. Love you. Okay, I have something that's exactly along these lines because Vervaeke was posed the question, like, how do you know if something's working, like for someone, like say they're a Christian or Buddhist or they're doing these practices, like how can you tell it's working? And he responded, does it make the adherent wiser? And I understand what he's saying. This is and that's, I think it's half the story again. This is because I'll have 2 examples. One is Job, because Job sounds like a crazy person, because his the first thing he says after his suffering is, I wish I was never born. I want to be uncreated, and I'm going to call up Leviathan to do this. And his friends are like, what are you talking about? And then he defends his integrity when, by all accounts of what has happened in the situation, Job has made God extremely angry and is reaping the consequences for his wickedness. So Job doesn't appear wise until later, and even like as the reader, you get the benefit of seeing what God says at the beginning and the end, that kind of frames everything. Otherwise, you'd think Job is a nutcase. The other example is I'm reading through First and Second Samuel, and King David. So King David gets anointed as king, and then the prophet Samuel, who anointed him, kind of takes a hike, is like, I'm done. But Saul is still king. So Saul takes David into his service. David he's leading battle. He's a commander in the army. He's wildly successful. God's blessing him. He's doing all this stuff. Saul is furious at this because he just wishes David would die so he wouldn't have to worry about this guy anymore. And so Saul ends up attempting to kill him at multiple points. There's these plots that end up getting foiled, and David in the process grows extremely paranoid, and then leaves. Then he's living in caves. He's pretending like he's crazy. He's got a band of men that gather around him. He's fighting with the Philistines. Like he looks like a crazy person. Now, I think this is the other half is like, John Vervaeke says, it makes the adherent wiser, these practices. You're like, and under what time frame? Because there could be decades where you look like a Looney Tune.
Right. Right, but he also doesn't have a definition for wisdom. And to be fair, I think no one
This-
does. I think
This
that's one of
reminds
the.
me. Sorry, Mark.
No, go
this,
ahead.
this is reminding me of something I've been thinking about today. I watched a conversation that Peugeot just had with some guy. I can't remember what his name is. And he was talking about his psychedelic experience, and he was saying, well, he was quoting. I can't remember where in the Bible. Judge a tree by the fruit that it bears.
Mhm.
And so that was his rationale for what he was doing was good. He thought I'm loving people more, and well, maybe you just happened to be right. Maybe you just got lucky, but like you're assuming that you can taste the fruit of your own tree. Like
Mhm.
there are other people that are going to be eating the fruit of that tree that you are completely unconscious of. That's this whole thing on consciousness. It's like
Mhm.
the world is not created by consciousness. Like your actions have consequences that you will never see, that will never come into your consciousness. So
Right.
That's well said. And I think that Vanderklay gets at that when he starts talking about we outsource our sanity. Right? In order for us to outsource our sanity, you need distributed cognition. And in fact, one of my arguments against distributed cognition is it's outsourced cognition. Now, outsourcing can be good. I'm in the computer industry, and outsourcing can be bad. Trust me, I'm in the computer industry. We've done it, and it mostly it's bad, right? Because you have to manage it very carefully for it to be good. And but we also have no choice. They don't want to make out like you can just be an individual and figure everything out by yourself. You need the distributed cognition because you need to be smarter than you are to be better than you are. It's that
it's
simple.
just that
You need to be smarter than you can be to know yourself. Like you need that reflection from other people, and that's where the distributed cognition comes in really handy. So I like actually Vanderklay is talking about distributed cognition better in some ways, although not completely. Neither of them are giving a complete picture of this thing, because if distributed cognition is correct, let's just assume that it's correct, and you say that distributed cognition must exist through time, right? In other words, the distributed cognition of all the smart people over the timeline is a thing, right? And it's better, bigger, right, and smarter than we'll say any group of equal sized people or even greater sized people today, which totally makes sense. Then the Bible's one of the smartest books ever written, right? like
how does
Christianity is a viable religion, and then to have the hubris to say I'm going to start a religion right now with a few of my smart friends that's going to be as bright as this thing that has distributed cognition through time.
Mhm.
I don't know where you even get such rationale. Like that's not rational. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like what is your 1,000 level IQ measure up to the cumulative IQ of people over the course of 3, 4, 5,000 years? It's like,
And we just refuted Protestantism in 5 minutes.
Oh, snap.
So sorry.
okay, turn off technological devices now.
Well, look, the only reason why I'm dressed like this is because I just came back from Vespers at an Orthodox church. So
Oh, wow.
Oh,
That's
fancy.
okay.
Wow.
Before I clicked on the stream, I was reading a study guide from our Orthodox priest for the class that I'm about to go into tomorrow. And while I was reading it, I was like, I wonder how Mark is. I wonder how Mark's conversation with his priest is going. And then I clicked on YouTube and I saw that you were on this live stream. I was like, whoa, that's just kind of weird.
Are you a catechumen, Mark?
No.
You're just attending.
I needed a question answered, and the Orthodox guy seemed like the right guy. So he invited me to Vespers, and I because I grew up in New England and we didn't talk about religion, the polite thing to do is if somebody invites you to their religious ceremony, you go. And like probably the best one I've ever been to is actually I have an Orthodox Jewish friend in Boston, and he invited me over for lunch, and he said, and he's pretty strict, right? So he said, well, you can, I have to do this ritual, and you're under no obligation to do it with me, but you're invited to, and I would be honored, and it was wonderful. Threw the towel over
That's
the
awesome.
shoulder and washed the hands and all this. It was great. It was great.
Oh, no hand washing for lunch. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. mean, it's like, what is all this? This is nuts. I just want to eat. But it was lovely. I loved it.
I do have to say the most important component of distributed cognition is man and wife.
Yes.
A
Yes,
married-
exactly.
A
Exactly.
married couple engage in distributed cognition in ways that no two human beings who are not having sex with each other possibly could.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I would say it's a matter of a perspective that you can't inhabit. Like you can't, and one of you can't inhabit as well the divine feminine, and the other can't inhabit as well the divine masculine. And it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman, right? Inhabiting, it makes no difference, right? But you need aspects of both to create a cognition that's bigger than both of you, that can live in a relationship, which is a container that's bigger than both of you, right? It just makes, and not only that, the idea of specialization is sitting right there in evolution. It's one of the key things about evolution, right? It's one of the keystone theories of evolution, specialization. And yet they deny it when it comes to male and female. And it's like, no, that's like the key thing in the whole thing. Like literally the actual key piece.
Chris, I have to say, I think what you're talking about, seeing the world through your child's eyes, I think that's more of a matter of orientation than distributed cognition. And yes, those two are related. Distributed cognition and orientation are related because distributed cognition helps to orient you. But the thing with distributed cognition, like when you're talking, especially when you're talking with a baby, although I have to say, like a 4-year-old will say the damnedest things, which will certainly make you like see the world different. But having a baby orients you in the world in a way that the baby itself isn't actually contributing to your cognition there, I don't think.
Well, it depends. I would defend it this way, Jacob, if I have to defend Chris, and I love Chris, so I'll defend his point for him.
Chris, that guy.
I would say that if you include perspective as part of distributed cognition, then the baby gives you a new perspective. But the big thing the baby does too is it also revivifies the world for you, right? It re-enchants the world because Peterson talks about this, right? When I walk down the street, it's just house, right? When I walk down the street with a kid, it's like that's a blue house and that's a red, and now I notice the house because my attention is being redirected, right? And so, and I would strengthen your argument too in there, Jacob. I would say that in order to raise a child correctly, you have to be used to having a new perspective, a different perspective. And that's easier if you have two opposing parents, one more on the divine feminine side and one more on the divine masculine side, right? Because you're getting used to, in the marriage, doing that perspective switching, or at least accounting for that perspective. So then when the kid comes along to revivify the world for you, you're better able to even do that. Like, I think it's really integral at all layers of reality. Like the world is a self-similar fractal. We got to get Peugeot to say self-similar fractal just so that I don't go nuts before I die. Yeah, that would be good, right? Self-similar fractal.
Can you extract that for 20 seconds?
In which part? In what way?
What you just said, self.
So Jonathan Peugeot says the world is fractal. Well, fractality isn't similarity. Self-similar fractals, like the Mandelbrot set, right? Those are the things that when you zoom in on them, they eventually start to repeat, and then once you get through one repetition, and then it's like that at all layers, right? And so the relationship that you have throughout your life, being a child and then growing up as an adult, gets repeated when you have a child, because all of the childlike wonder that you lost to become a specialized adult gets re-injected into you by the perspective of the child, and the child pointing out things in the world that it's curious about, that you used to be curious about, but now that you, quote, know them, you're not so curious anymore, right? But then, and I mentioned this earlier, right? But then what happens is you, not only do you get that new perspective, but also any 3 or 4-year-old is the most perfect postmodern critiquer because they can just ask why until you run out of answers, right? And they seem very smart. That can seem very intelligent, right? But really all it's doing is revivifying the world for you.
Postmodern, destroyed by facts and logic by 4-year-old.
Yes.
Okay. I want to have a meta conversation here. I think that this chatting thing is a really good thing, and I would like to see this being available on a much broader scale.
Mhm.
If people want to use my channel for this, I do have the capacity of adding selected people to be administrators on my channel and to have this run even when I actually have to go do other things. Or we could set up some sort of organization or channel or whatever, and but I would like to run this much more than I would like to run this, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We could have had Jess pop on here and walk us through his deep study of Job.
Oh, that would.
If I would have saw that, I would have jumped on. You know, I mean, it's.
Look,
Well, it's all on YouTube, so you can watch it.
Oh, really? Do you have your own channel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got me and Sherry have like 22 hours on Job.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Forgive my ignorance. I'll check it out.
Oh, Jess is the Job master.
I've been
I have no doubt that after 120 years, Jess is going to show up at like some rabbi's house, and in heaven, and the rabbi is going to be amazed that like he and Jess will be talking about Job for the rest of eternity. But back to the meta conversation. I have this vision, and I've tried to sell several people on it, of having a channel that's our little corner, but 24/7. And if there's enough interest in various people who want to do it, we might have to start figuring out where to grab the content. But we create so much content, right? And if we just had a place where, I'm doing something, I have some time, maybe I'll listen to what people are saying in real time, right? And discussing, and maybe I want to jump in, maybe I don't. Look, there's 11 people watching, and I know YouTube is undercounting this.
Yeah. Well, look, Jacob. I think the problem is you're aiming real high, real fast. And I noticed this in the other stream. The one that you did with Catherine and Eamon and Father Eric, which was a great stream, by the way. Not just because Father Eric mentioned me twice, which was awesome, but there were other reasons too. But I think really the key to building community, and I've built communities, right? Like the Vervaeke server, that whole meditation thing. John didn't do that, right? Manuel and Mark did that, right? So if you look at why that works, it's because we had a regular topic at a regular time. And just starting out with once a week, we're always going to talk about this, or once a week we're going to have an open discussion, or on Tuesdays we're going to have open discussion, and on Thursdays we're going to talk about the summarization of someone's important thought, and then have different people, for however long that takes. Maybe it'll be a month talking with Jess, or if you could keep him to a month of once a week. I don't know that you could do that. Talking about Job, right? Or we're going to talk about Vervaeke's participatory knowledge, right? Or whatever it is. Like something like that would be highly successful, in my opinion. And then it would take a while to take off. But then if you do it regularly like that, and you have it scheduled, and people can fit it into their lives, then they will. And that's the thing you generate the 24/7 content off of eventually.
Yeah, I mean, Jacob, I think you're doing a great job. Like, just be-
so there are, okay, there will always be channels which like will broadcast and will have the times, and maybe those channels need to have particular broadcast times. That's for the particular channels. I want a water cooler. This is more of a water cooler idea of people just, you know, and so I have my Bible study with Jason on Tuesday evenings, which I try to have every Tuesday evening. Like that is the type of idea that you were talking about, Mark.
Right.
The just chatting is actually, I hope, a very different idea of, and frankly, it's really started working, which is when I have time, I just come on, and if somebody wants to come on and talk, you know, and sometimes nobody does, but that's becoming less and less common, and all kinds of people come and we talk about all kinds of stuff, and sometimes we talk about like nothing in particular, that, and it's not something, well, weirdly enough, there's plenty of people who watch my just chatting streams like more than my actual streams, but I think those people just want something in the background that they don't have to completely pay attention to, but
Yeah,
is
sure.
the water cooler.
Yeah. But if you make it topic based or whatever, then it'll be better. I'm just saying, or if you make it on a regular time, like we're gonna have a water cooler discussion about this little corner of the internet and summarize it, you know, on Saturday nights or something, right? Those sorts of things would be really good. But also, I agree. Like we need a Jewish cooking show for sure. Otherwise, it's not gonna work.
Well, I am not going to do the Jewish cooking show, and if it's actually 24/7, I'm going to have to wonder if I can host it on my channel, because I try to not flaunt the fact that I am not Sabbath observant, and so I would actually kind of prefer if it was a I actually would kind of prefer if it was a different channel. I'm we could call it, I don't know, this little corner just chatting, whatever. StreamYard provides a very good platform for doing this type of thing if we have enough people that we can trust. I mean, I would be willing to take even maybe 6 hours of it a week, but we would have to have enough responsible hosts to actually make it happen. And what some of the Muslim Dawa channels which do this type of thing have been doing is they've been having 24-hour thons just to have the 24-hour, you know, feel of it, but they don't do it regularly. But I would like to see us just chatting off Discord and more on StreamYard, on YouTube, because it allows a lot of people who want to be lurkers to be precisely that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand your point. And look, I mean, strategically, all I'll say is, well, now with BOM in the shape that it's in, strike while the iron's hot and try to get, try to get that crew over here.
I've kind of been thinking about that as well. Yeah, I am not on BOM. I don't know exactly what's going on, but from what I hear, look, I could not stomach watching a slow motion train wreck, and
Yeah,
that's a major reason why I'm not there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah, it's yeah, in the afternoons and evenings, it's basically dead. No one can pull a crowd except a couple of us when we go on, then we can get some people in the channel. But and even that, it's much less than it was. I mean, there were plenty of times just before the summer there where there were 2 channels going, and there were, like more than a dozen people on, and I haven't seen anything close to that. And it's
from
the
what I
middle of
hear,
October.
it's become a Christian echo chamber.
Well, and also, Paul hasn't been around, but now that Joey's gone, it's like, well, where's the draw? Because Joey was the draw, right? And but not all the draw, but part of the draw. And like, why do I want to hang out on BOM other than to talk to Manuel if Joey's not there? Because Joey's not there. So it's like, well, there's nobody else to talk to here, right? Joey was there all the time, right? And so, yeah, it's a problem when you have a vacuum like that, and you don't fill it with something else. And they just, I don't know what they're thinking, or if thinking was involved in this. I suspect there was less distributed cognition in the switchover than they think, and yeah, it wasn't very well thought out.
I mean, I think literally just Joey just left. Like there wasn't anything. So like everyone was like,
Joey, yeah, he had life, and
Yeah.
going back to life is a perfectly valid thing for a human being to do.
Good for Joey.
And I will keep on prodding. My PVK should have taken more responsibility over his server, whether or not he claims it's not his server. But it doesn't even matter. And I mean, I'm guessing at least some of you saw when PVK came on my Just Chatting stream, and I prodded him about, so okay, you're going to have your Q&A on my Discord server, and he's like, yeah, I could. And Rick just put in the comments,
Right. Well, look, I mean, it's not simply a matter of Joey going away, right? There's they wanted to make some changes to the server. Joey picked his exit carefully, right? And
Rick and Paul were wanting to make changes to the server.
No, not Paul, but everybody else, right? Including, look, I mean, they want to bring back people like Nathan, even though Nathan's proven himself time and time again on multiple Discord servers.
Who wanted to bring Nathan? That's news to me.
Oh no, they want to bring everybody back.
People wanted to bring
Well,
back.
Everybody.
Paul said many times if he had his way, Nathan would be back on the server. He said that many times, right? And it's like, it's that attitude where it's like, yeah, and they tried to let somebody else back on, and that didn't work. Like, they keep making this mistake. They keep thinking like, well, Joey didn't handle it right, or Joey blah, or whatever, right? Everyone's got a criticism until they have to run it, and then all of a sudden they realize they're incompetent, and then they get all upset about everything else other than their bad idea. Well, what they want to do is a bad idea, right? It's not new. It's been tried. It doesn't work.
Competence was at a level that made it seem like, to a lot, this is actually a problem with really good competence, is people, they make it look easy.
Yep. They make it look easy. That's right. Yeah.
Jeff has a question for you.
Who's
they?
Well, look, I mean, there's a lot of people on that server that wanted it run differently, right? They made some channel changes, and they, and I don't know who all those people
Yes,
are, I don't
you
care. Like, I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm an admin.
I did not know you. I did not remember you were an admin. You're also an admin on my server.
I know. I don't even know what to do.
You can do whatever you like.
Okay. We're gonna clean that sucker up.
We have to be careful. Again, the left hand of the logos. We can't have a phobia of margins. Like, margins exist. Like, whether you want them to, whether you believe in them or not. Like, you can say, I don't believe in margins. That doesn't change the fact that they exist. And you could.
Yeah, you need to pay attention to the spirit. And that's what's sorely lacking. People, and not just in BOM or anything, like, people are not paying attention to the spirit. No sane person is going to engage Nathan if they look at his YouTube channel. And just to your point, Jacob, just the titles should tell you everything you need to know, or you can find out, he's upset at a person, and he was still upset at that person a year later.
Showed
He
up.
never talked to him.
This is an epic stream.
Only if it's good. Hopefully it's good. We're trying to steer Jacob towards the good, Paul. We're working on it.
Paul, we've all decided you are insufficiently outraged by the exhausting nonsense that is PVK Christian's pseudo profound dribble.
It's pretty harsh. Like, yeah.
Good luck,
luck
with
with
that.
Pseudo profound dribble is my favorite type of dribble.
Yeah, and a lot of the and look, the streams are worse than the titles, right? I sampled a few of his Nathan streams, and they're anger and resentment porn, and that's fine.
I mean,
I'm not
I
mad
think
about that, but really,
titles. That was actually part of the whole thing yesterday. I mean, I did have this stream yesterday.
yeah.
If you actually watched the stream, which I have to say is one of the high points of my life, I think I'm serious. I think I may have made a positive impact in the Muslim world, which is weird, but it's the power of the logos.
Right.
And look, Jordan Peterson, I think, is absolutely right. Start speaking truthfully, and you will be amazed at what happens.
Right. But I think also, Jacob, one of the problems, and this is something that Jess was pointing out earlier, right, is this idea about conversation. And I think we're confused. The logos does not mean conversation. Like, you speak the truth, whether somebody talks to you or not, and all this weird stuff starts happening for the good, right? And so that doesn't require conversation. You don't need to talk to people to do that. You can just speak truth in the world, or better yet, participate in truth in the world, right? In other words, the truth as a process that is in right relationship to reality. I came up with that earlier today. Actually, I was thinking about this all day for various reasons. Probably the Orthodox priest had something to do with it. Father Ignatius. But
say that again.
There is that participation that is in right relationship with reality. It's that type of truth. It's not the propositional type of truth. It's not truth as word. It's truth as deed. And you need both. Like, I'm not saying do one and not the other, right? That you need both. But what you don't need is to have an active, productive conversation with somebody. You don't need that. Like, you can just tell. I'll give you a story, because people love stories. So I'll give you this story. I told this recently to somebody. So what happened was, my uncle. So I've one really good uncle. My uncle Al. He's a great guy. So he's at this point, he's young, right? He's drinking. All his friends are drinking, except he goes to this party. And he's going to be, see you, Paul. Fine, he's going to miss my story. That's fine.
I know you just got up on your soapbox, Mark. Paul's leaving.
We're trying to reel in the big guy. Like, we should start talking about Calvinism, and
wait, don't leave yet.
We're losing viewers.
Would draw him in. He'll watch it later. So my uncle decides to be.
No way he's gonna watch all my Just Chatting streams. Do you know how many hours?
No, just this one. Just this one.
He just wants to hear the end of Mark's story.
Yeah, he'll just hear the end of my story.
People love
so my uncle's doing this designated driver thing at this one party, and this guy is like, "Hey man, can you take my keys and don't give them back to me? If I get too drunk." And my uncle's like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that. That's no problem." So he takes the guy's keys. And, later on in the evening, guy's completely sloshed, right? And there's no way that he should be driving home. So he starts bugging my uncle. And my uncle's like, "I'm not giving you your keys back. You told me when you were sober, and, that's not going to happen." And the guy keeps it up for like an hour. And finally, my uncle just loses it. And he said, "You know what? F you, and I don't care. Go ahead and kill yourself." And he grabs the keys and chucks them like as far as he can down the street. So he just throws them down the street. Says, "If you want to kill yourself, go right ahead." And then he walks off. And he doesn't talk to the guy again, ever. Right? And like, 12 years later or 15 years later or some ridiculous amount of time later, I forget the time frame, but it was years and years. It was more than 10 years. He runs into the guy and he says, you know, I never got to thank you. That was the last time I ever drank.
Oh, wow.
Because I saw how much you cared about me not driving, and you know, you were willing to do what you did, and not stop me at the same time. Like, he gave him his keys back and was going to let him drive with a less of a big deal back in the day, right? But it worked. That wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a two-way thing, right? It was just him speaking the truth. Fine. If you're absolutely hell-bent on killing yourself, go right ahead. I'm not going to be involved, right?
Right.
And so that's a way in which it's not a conversation that changes the world. It's not. And I'm not saying conversations don't change the world. They do, but it's so extraordinarily rare. And if you don't believe me, go look at YouTube. Look at all the conversations people are having and not moving in, right? It's the overwhelming majority, right? And I'm not saying don't have conversations. I have conversations, obviously, all the time, right? But it's more powerful to just speak the truth and not worry about the consequences. And even know when those consequences may be bad for you. But look, Christians are for lions, man. Get out there and face them.
Well, this gets to like the fear of bullshit. Like they're underlying. I hate to pick on Vervaeke, but there's this underlying fear of like, I don't want to be subject to self-deception and bullshit. And I don't know how you get to choose that. Like, obviously we don't want to fall for bullshit. We don't want to be self-deceived. But on another side, like he's trying to build up a matrix of things to potentially guard against that stuff. You know, he's not under the illusion that he can protect himself from it. Like, but he wants to do enough. But like with some of the examples that I was sharing, like about like, you know, does the things you're practicing make you wiser? Well, let's look at King David. After he's left Saul, he's roaming around with these questionable bunch of thugs, you know, and he has a sense of his own integrity, and that's it. And so he makes decisions based on that. And I think that, so this is kind of something I'm trying to think through. I think that sense of integrity is more important than or is the guiding thing. And it may even be something that Peterson's hinting at when he's talking about the individual. Like, what is distributed what is distributed cognition for? I think it's to make people into the end that it does that. But also adversarial conflict also does that too. And so does wisdom builds you up, but so does bullshit. Bullshit can build you up too if you're oriented correctly. And it doesn't always look pretty. And so like this is where like I'm like, you don't get to choose. Like you could be doing something very foolish where you like give in, like you're like, F you, throw the keys. I lost my temper. I'm not happy about it. Ends up changing the guy's life. How do you calculate that?
Right. But that's the thing. You don't, right?
Yeah,
you have to go
can't.
with your intuition, right? But,
Right.
And what's the solution to bull? See, this is what I mean by John doesn't take distributed cognition seriously enough. What is the solution to bullshitting yourself? The only possible solution is outsourced sanity or outsourced cognition, which is distributed cognition is outsourced cognition. They're the same thing. Like, you need other people, right? Not exclusively and not everybody, but look, you're not the Buddha. Okay. I'm sorry. Like, somebody's the Buddha, but it's probably not you. Right. So I'm not saying not anybody ever can do this by themselves, but almost nobody ever can do this by themselves. You need other people. Right. And then look, I mean, I can go on. I can say, look, John talks about transformation. Okay. Well, transformation doesn't make any sense if you're an individual, because an individual isn't going to spontaneously combust into something greater than themselves. That's not how that works. Right. You need a framework to become greater into, and you need people to help you orient self bullshit, right? Avoid the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all
look-
distributed cognition. All
Yeah.
of that is required.
But like say in the case of Job, the whole distributed cognition thing falls apart for him because his wisdom tradition and his social network basically falls apart once the disasters hit him. And basically the whole distributed consciousness framework in representation of his friends ends up
Right.
turning against him to
Yep.
maintain itself.
Right.
And
But
and so
distributed
what is
cognition- but
what
it's
does
not
Job have
good.
to? Well then what? Why are we relying on distributed cognition? Like
We should-
what?
That's the other point.
Yeah.
We shouldn't rely on distributed cognition because
There's
this is-
something beyond it that it's doing that it's pointing to.
It's not something beyond it. Look, there's a bunch of stuff out there like distributed cognition, right? And intuition and propositional knowledge.
Right.
Let's just say there's all this stuff. Like I know I'm mixing a bunch of stuff up, but I'm doing it on purpose, right? So there's a bunch of stuff out there, right? But none of it has a valence of good versus evil. None of it, right?
Hmm.
The only way to get to the good is to go to the good. And the only way to get to the true is to go to the true. And the only way to get to the beautiful is to go to the beautiful. If you do any one of those things without the other two, you're going astray. Period.
Mhm.
There's three transcendentals, and you need all three of them, and you can't swap them out, and they aren't in a hierarchy. You can't say, well, I'm going to go through beauty to get to truth. No, you're not. You're wrong. It's that simple. And I think the whole idea of relying on distributed cognition to make everybody, not self bullshit is garbage. Like, I think that's just crazy talk. It's one piece of the puzzle and it can help. But if you don't go towards the good, distributed cognition is just your cult. That's all it is, right? To your point. Like, yeah, distributed cognition can lead you astray more easily than it can lead you to transformation. You're
Can't hear
muted.
you, Jacob.
You're muted, man.
Chris makes a point that I think is a bad point, and I want to address it. He says, I think the distributed cognition has to have a level of bullshit in order to exist. A bullshit-free distributed cognition would become extremely volatile. I don't think it has to be bullshit. I think there is privacy and secrecy necessary in distributed cognition. There has to be this concept of some things are behind the curtain and you don't watch all the sausage being made all the time.
No, you can't.
The problem is when that is actually just covering up a bunch of bullshit. And that's why
Chris wants an optimal amount of bullshit in the system.
Of course he does.
When Christ says, "Come follow me," there is an.
the
I don't want to be
optimal
blasphemous,
bullshit is Trinity.
Oh, no.
Okay, when Christ says, "Come follow me," there is an element of deception there. It's like
Yeah.
there's no reason there. It's just come follow me and see what happens. I'm thinking of
Well,
Paul's video.
I wouldn't call that deception, right?
Well,
I'd call
it's
that
not giving you a reason why. It's just come follow me and see what happens.
right, but something without reason is not deception, right? Something that you can't participate in, or something that you're told you can participate in a certain way, but you can't. That's deception. But you've got to link it back to participation because look, this is all wound up in the Izot gap, right? And for me, the easiest way to understand it is to use the model that we developed on the Vervaeke server. Instead of Vervaeke's 4 Ps, you use our 4 Ps of information and 2 types of knowledge. And then you see the Izot gap. And all of a sudden, all this stuff makes a lot more sense. And I'll tell you, it's a way simpler model than everyone else's. And it drops a lot of things into place. And I have a whole video with slides and the whole 9 yards on it on navigating patterns. You can check it out if you want.
What's
Right.
it called? What's the video called?
It's the one on what is it called? Knowledge Engine.
Knowledge Engine. Okay.
I've got so many videos, I don't know the titles anymore. So
Oh my God. You're a regular media powerhouse.
I am. Yeah.
As the host, I have to nip this Trinitarian bullshit in the bud. No, the Trinity is not the optimal level of bullshit in the world.
I don't even know what.
we do not need something like the Trinity to create the optimal amount of bullshit in the world. The
Chris is a
but-
Trinitarian pragmatist.
okay.
As long as it works.
Regarding protocols, I have to say I haven't taken a look at your protocol, but the only protocol I have found that actually works is verifying that the person you're talking to is an actual human being who's not playing some role, LARPing, right? And the only way I have found to do that is A, get their actual effing real name and who they are, so that they're not hiding behind some persona in their mind, and B, communicate with them visually in the way that we're doing. And if somebody is going to still be bullshitting or be dishonest, and you can't have a conversation with them while you're doing this, then at that point, yeah, is when I give up on someone. But part of the problem is we are doing this all on the internet. And on the internet, all of us don't just have the capacity to, but we are encouraged to pick a handle, pick a persona,
Right.
be somebody else. And you have to get back to the actual human behind that persona, because some people have absolutely psychotic personae, and multiple of them on the internet, and they don't care. And
Right.
that's far worse than there is anything in the world. In
No,
the real.
I want to push back a little bit, Jacob. I mean, look, I think there's a very important role and a good role for this. We'll say the PVK approach, right, where you're just super nice to somebody no matter what. And to some extent, we actually practice this on the Vervaeke server, where anybody can come on the Vervaeke server and have conversation with us. And as long as they're civil and they don't get triggered by questions, because this is what happens. Like, the easy way to find out if somebody's honest, right, is just ask them open-ended questions about what they believe. And the thing is, if they go, you just accused me of being blah, 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 and Manuel or I go, we literally just asked you a question, dude. Like, there were no propositional statements at all. So any propositional statements came from your brain. They weren't here in the world, right? That's an easy way to spot. I don't need to see them on camera. I don't. I can tell you right off the bat if they're a troll within a few minutes. It's really not that hard, right? And I don't want to boil that down to a protocol because I probably couldn't do it, right? And maybe I'm just quick enough and I've been around enough trolls. And, I talked about this in my first talk with Vanderklay. Like, this used to be a game for people that we all knew we were playing and played happily. And I happened to be rather good at it. Or there were a lot of other people better than me for sure. But we did this and it was fun and we all knew we were doing it to each other. And, part of the game was prove flat earth. And if the other person couldn't disprove the thesis, and this happened many times, by the way, then they won. And it's like, even though everybody knew flat earth's absurd and nobody was believing it, but can you defend a position that you don't hold? And if you can, you're a good troll. Because that's really ultimately part of what a troll is. It's not all of what a troll is, but that's part of the trolling skill, is being able to defend a position that you don't agree with at all against somebody else, because it just means that you have better argumentation skills. But it's also easy to spot, and it's easy to spot people like Nathan Ormond. I mentioned my trick earlier in the stream, right? I said something that only a narcissist would interpret as being aimed at them. It certainly wasn't aimed at anybody. And so a narcissist will get outed instantly with a trick like that. It works every single time.
I don't know if any trick works every single time. Okay, how many of you know who Claire is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just Jess.
I saw some of the wars, the YouTube wars.
Okay.
The comment wars.
So, Claire, and I have to admit, I don't have absolute proof of this. So let's talk about the possibilities for who Claire is. Claire may be just one insane woman in England, and that is what a lot of people think she is. What I think Claire is an attorney who has been hired by someone, I don't know who, to create a persona to go on the internet and discredit conservative voices. And she is one of the smartest people I have ever encountered. And I've encountered a lot of incredibly smart people. And I cannot believe that she's spent the last, I think, 5-6 years more than full time. This woman is online more than 24/7, pushing this idea. She has an idea. She calls it secular Coranism. Pushing this idea that of secular Coranism, and she has to date found one convert in all those years, despite all the people she's interviewed. Like, she's gotten a lot of people on her channel. She has her own following. She's been in newspapers. She's gotten one supposed convert who only showed up about, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, I think, when I started making videos exposing Claire. And I think the exposing of her has actually worked. So when CW asks, where is Claire? I think there are seriously people whose job it is. And if you think about it, it simply makes sense. There are people whose professional avocation is to go on the internet and influence the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Edelman Public Relations, the largest public relations company in the world, makes roughly $1 billion, and this is public information. They make roughly $1 billion a year. This is one company, right? And if you don't think they have people trying to manipulate the discussion on Twitter and on Wikipedia, and yes, also
of course. No, everybody. Look. Before the internet, on bulletin board systems, there was a very large multi-line, multi-chat bulletin board systems, text only, right? Modems, right?
I remember them. I was on BLS's.
One of them was run by Hill Holiday Corporation, or run by a sub-corporation of Hill Holiday Advertising Corporation. So these people have been honing these skills for much longer than the internet's been popular. Right. And it's good to know that, because people are trying to manipulate it. Right. Fortunately, it doesn't work very well. It does work. It has an effect. Like, everything has an effect. Right. But it doesn't work very well. Like, it doesn't work the way they want it to. I've talked to marketing executives about this. It doesn't work the way they want it to. Believe me, it's much less effective than you think. And thank God for that. But there's a lot of people in the world, and it only takes a handful of people. Like, man, you get 50 patrons and you're set as an individual.
Look, and nobody knows where she gets her money, because she's kind of been. But Sally Joe, you are the perfect person to help me round this up. I'm not actually sure what you're asking when you say, "Are we the League of Anti-Influenza?" Then, but we are coming upon 3 hours of me just chatting, and I actually have work I should be doing. I would love to keep this going forever, but some of us are not just incredibly wealthy.
Wait, this is where we need to make our plea to the independent millionaire and billionaires out there that want to support individuals on the internet that are doing positive things. They can bankroll all of us.
That's true.
We'll just chat all day, and we'll put out the positive vibes and talk about the left and right hand of God and whatever they want.
The goodness channel. Well, I won't talk about any God stuff. I promise.
No, it'll be non-theist.
Is he live right now? Please tell me Kanye is actually live right now.
And is live. That's what it says.
Oh, really?
You know,
Jacob's
how,
gonna
You're going to lose all your viewers.
how come everyone's talking about Kanye, but nobody's talking about his blatantly anti-Semitic tweets that got deleted by Twitter?
I
Where he's
saw
calling for
zero
another
blatantly
genocide.
anti-Semitic tweets. I am aware of nothing he said which was actually anti-Semitic.
Ethan, like, look, we have to have these genocides every once in a while, and it's been a ton of time. Like, it's time again. Well, there's Ukraine.
If
Never
there
mind.
are anti-Semitic tweets, I would like to know what those are. I have yet to actually hear. He said he was going to come at Jews. He said that blacks are the real Jews. Unfortunately, this is all over the black community. Vocab Malone, who I had on this channel talking about the Black Hebrew Israelites, this is something that our establishment is pushing in the black communities. Black Hebrew Israelitism is real, and if you're going to blame Kanye West and Nick Cannon actually made some actual anti-Semitic comments in addition to the Black Hebrew Israelite stuff. Look, if our society is serious about addressing anti-Semitism in the black community, I have videos on this. I had a little war with some Black Hebrew idiots. You can see it on my channel. Blacks thinking they're Jews is a compliment. Yeah. Where it gets bad is the murders, and there have been many murders. People who have been murdered over the past 3 years, just the past 3 years by Black Hebrew Israelites, and the number of assaults is not small in New York and the New Jersey area. So if we want to talk about this, we can, and obviously it's an area of interest for me. But in 3 minutes, I am going to turn into a pumpkin. So you guys can give your final thoughts before I turn the stream off.
Watch the Job podcast. That's all I have to say.
I actually want to watch your Job stuff. You know more about Job than Frank. I am wondering if these rabbis I know who know their Bible backwards and forwards, like if they know Job the way you know Job, because few people know Job the way you do Job.
Well, just listen to the Wisdom Poem, chapter 28, and listen to like the first and last episode, and that's enough. And if it piques your interest, then listen to all of it, because it's fascinating. I can't stop thinking about that stupid book. It's not stupid.
We've noticed. We've noticed.
We noticed. We know. No. What? Don't waste your time on Jess and Job. Watch Navigating Patterns. The whole thing. It's every.
Oh yeah, we should be like promoting each other. Yeah, go to Navigating Patterns. Watch the knowledge machine.
Knowledge
take
engine.
flight.
I'm gonna
The
have
knowledge
Intimacy
engine.
Crisis. I've got Catherine in the Intimacy Crisis. That's coming out.
Oh, you have Catherine on.
Oh, yeah, Catherine.
Catherine's great.
Yes.
I might have to watch that. Yeah. Okay, Ethan, you get the last word. I'm turning it off.
I'll be quick. I was gonna say that we kind of a couple people from the Thunder Bay conference. We've started a Dante book club, and one of the persons, said a couple weeks ago. I said, "Man, it's a shame that nobody it's just us here that have Anyway, they were resentful that some of the insights that were coming as a result of the book club will just be lost forever. I didn't say that, but if you are trying to have a 24-hour stream, I'll bring it up to them. Maybe we could jump on here and have our little. We just read one canto a week. But the thing is Elizabeth is kind of heading it, and she's a lady that she carries around 2 books in her purse: the Bible and Dante, the Commedia, and she knows it, and she knows a fair bit of Italian. In fact, I think she was on Pajot's stream about a year ago when he was doing a book club on Dante. She was on that stream, so she has a lot of insight to offer. Yes, CW knows who I'm talking about, and he's supposed to be in our book club, but isn't.
Well, CW is supposed to do a lot of things, including I've asked him to host Just Chatting streams on here, and he refuses because he's too good for us. Okay, good night, people.